If you've ever played a Tekken game before, and I assume you have as you clicked on this video, then you'll no doubt be familiar with all of its wonderful content. But what about the stuff that didn't make it into these games? And not just that, what about the files that are normally inaccessible? I mean, for a series originating from Neanderthal times, there's bound to be scrapped material for us to explore, right? Before we go any further, I want to make clear that I'll only be covering the franchise's numbered entries. I wasn't able to find much information about its spin-offs, and I feel that the video will flow a lot better if we go in release order, and even then, some mainline games have little to no publicly available cut content, so these sections will be quite short. Also, most of my information comes from the Cutting Room Floor, a fantastic archival website dedicated to scrapped content in video games, as well as various YouTube channels that host videos of said content. I'll leave a full list of credits in the description if you would like to learn more, and I couldn't have made this video without them. From cut audio, stages, modes, and even characters, there's plenty to find within this series' files. With that said, get ready to explore the murky depths of mystery as we uncover the cut content of Tekken. As the first entry into the series, Tekken 1, of course, is home to scrapped concepts, and many of them remain not just on the game disc, but also in its arcade machine. Speaking of which, there are loads of unused audio files here, with one containing the title's original name,
Rave War.
If you aren't aware, Tekken was first announced as Rave War, with this announcer line being meant for an early title screen. The announcer can also be heard mentioning Lee, Wang, and Heihachi, none of which are playable in the arcade release.
Li Chao Leng. Wan Jin Lei. Heihachi Mishima.
On the topic of fighters, Law's name used to be Law the Dragon.
Law the Dragon.
Cool, right? A line of the announcer saying the word versus is present too, but it's never heard in the final game.
Versus.
Other audio files relate to a scrapped fighter by the name of Wildcard.
Wildcard.
Hacking the game to play as him results in Kazuya's model possessing Kunimitsu's animations, and he even has a custom name under his health bar. With how unorthodox his name is, I assume he was meant to function as a dedicated random select character, just like Mokujin. Despite not being in the first Tekken, Devil Kazuya's laser beams from Tekken 2 have their sound effect here, as well as Paul, Law, Nina, and Michelle having scrapped audio files. Additionally, there are unused win animations that can be viewed via hacking. As none of them are finished, there's no camera data or audio, so they all look quite bizarre. Looking at the PS1 port now, beta footage has been archived online, and there are plenty of changes when compared to the final release. This Japanese trailer from 1995 has no character names or hit effects, and the round start text is super small. There are also no camera changes during throws, not to mention the absurd damage output. On a more humorous note, the crude illustration of Kazuya found in Paul's ending has sprite data within the game's files. It's believed to be an unused save icon for PS1 memory cards, but was eventually replaced by Heihachi. Logos for Namco exist here too, as well as an image relating to Namco's NEG-Con controller. Initially, this was all I found, but then I stumbled across this old image of Heihachi from a 90s strategy guide, and it reminds me of his Fundoshi outfit in Tekken 4. Finally, the Namco logo animation from the arcade version can be found on the PS1 disc, but it goes unused here. Moving over to Tekken 2, there sadly isn't much to discuss here, at least in terms of what lies hidden in the game files. An incredibly small texture file for Angel's Wings can be found, with a developer crossing out the top right portion of the image. I assume this was for testing purposes, but I'm not 100% sure. All that remains are some text strings, with the first containing a funny typo and the latter containing the game's build date. Interestingly, the theater mode, which serves as a gallery, is exclusive to Tekken 2's Japanese release. This technically makes it cut content, as it was intentionally removed from the Western versions of the title, but I feel that this might be pushing it a bit. In more exciting news, an early trailer of the game from 1995 has survived, and there are numerous differences for us to spot. Jun's outfit here is brighter than in the final product, as it appears more grey there. Next up is King's Octopus Special, and it seems to be an extension for a stomach smash. In the final game, the grab can only be performed after counter-hit stagger kicks, with the fourth kick being required for the Octopus Special. The move also serves as an instant kill, doing a whopping 80 damage, but it's anything but in the trailer. Nina's wind pose reuses parts of Heihachi's animation, and Jun's wind pose is completely different. The post-round replay text is different too, and there are many early sound effects that were replaced. Unfortunately, that's all I could find for Tekken 2, but fret not, because the next game has far more intriguing cut content. Like its older brother, Tekken 3 contains boatloads of unused audio, but most of them are short character voice lines that were later reused for Tekken Tag Tournament, things like battle cries and KO screams. In the interest of time, I won't be playing them in this video, but you can check them out on the cutting room floor if you're interested. During Japan's AOU 1997 Expo, a pre-release build of Tekken 3 was featured, allowing attendees to get their hands on the game early. I couldn't spot any cut content per se, but the camera's positioning is reminiscent of Tekken 2, and there are far fewer characters than in the final game. Flying over to the UK, a pre-release Tekken 3 build was shown in Season 6 Episode 14 of Games Master, an old TV show dedicated to covering video games. Much of what we see here are Tekken 2 assets and animations being reused for placeholder purposes, but new characters Jin and Xiaoyu have placeholder textures. Early characters like Soul Jackson, a scrapped name for Tiger Jackson, Shake, Insect, Jun Kazama, and Kazuya Mishima have announcer lines hidden within the files, with Jun even having a character portrait that can be hacked into the leaderboards.
Soul Jackson, Shake, Insect, Jun Kazama, Kazuya Mishima.
Shake was meant to be a giant salmon that Kuma would use as a swinging weapon, but this idea evolved into making Shake its own character, one that would do nothing but flop around and just lose. While this is hilarious in the short term, series producer Katsuhiro Harada thought that arcade goers would feel ripped off if they paid money to enter a guaranteed fail state, so the idea was scrapped. However, data that allows Shake to be playable still exists, and he takes the form of Yoshimitsu with Jin's animations. There's even this ominous looking character select portrait too, creepy. Insect was inspired by a bug, no pun intended, where character models would become horribly distorted, resembling a giant praying mantis in the process. Jun and Kazuya are straightforward inclusions, and they were likely removed in development as Tekken 3's narrative was being fleshed out. The former can be hacked back into the roster using Nina's model and Jin's animations, whereas Kazuya has far less playable data. The cutting room floor claims that his hip throw animation is in the files, but I wasn't able to find a video that demonstrates this. For how beloved Tekken 3 is by both hardcore and casual fighting game fans alike, it's a shame that more of its cut content isn't publicly available. Considered to be the black sheep of the series, Tekken 4 is my personal favourite entry for its amazing atmosphere, presentation, and soundtrack, but there are some fascinating qualities that were removed from or altered in the final product. In a Japanese trailer, the shopping mall stage features an escalator, the KO text is semi-transparent, post-round fighter text is a different colour, and Steve's beta name can be seen on the HUD, just to list a few differences. On September 8, 2001, a new trailer with slight differences was released, although this was after the game's Japanese launch. Tekken 4 hit the West a bit late in 2002, so Namco let us Westerners see some early gameplay to keep the hype train going. Aside from King's hair being missing and having extra damage, the jungle music is totally different. Take a listen. Additionally, the replay screen has a totally distinct camera angle from retail Tekken 4. Jumping back to Steve for a moment, his name went through extensive iterations during development, and luckily for us, the announcer was nice enough to read them out.
Dean Ewicker, Leonard Gardner, Ryan Lewis, Sugar McGregor.
Newcomers Christy and Violet underwent a similar phenomenon too.
Amy Nascimento, Fiona Gilberto, Benjamin.
Yep, Violet's initial name was Benjamin. There's nothing wrong with that name at all, but I gotta say, Violet sounds way cooler. Other lines include the iconic Good Morning, which is a staple of the series, production information, and some miscellaneous phrases.
Good morning. Produced by Namco. Extra round.
Extra battle perked my interest the first time I heard it, as that phrase was first used to accompany Tekken 6's Nancy fight. Perhaps Tekken 4 would have had something similar? Getting even crazier now, the announcer has more unused lines, this time relating to fighters from previous games, as well as Jinpachi, who first appeared in Tekken 5.
Anna Williams, Jun Kazama, Forrest Law, Ganyu, Eddie Gordo, Gun Jack, Armor King, Michelle Chang, Pecto-san, Jack 2, Bruce Irvin, Kunimitsu, Tetsujin, Mokujin, Henjin, Kinjin, Wang Jinglei, Prototype Jack, Devil, Angel, Ogre, True Ogre, Roger, RX, Tiger, Dr. Boskanovich, Dr. Abel.
He even says chicken, implying Tekken Bowling was to make a return.
Chicken.
Anyway, Tekken 4's PS2 port contains some unique scrapped features, including a test character model with Kazuya's move list and an invisible fighter. I don't know how this would ever play out in a real match, so I assume it was here for some testing purposes. By inputting an action replay code, you can enable this hidden boost feature. It speeds up the combat to a ridiculous extent, although it doesn't function properly in Tekken Force mode. The code you need to input depends on the title's region, and I wonder how this was discovered in the first place. Another obscure discovery involves Jin's Omen stance from Tekken Tag Tournament, as it's hidden away in Tekken 4's files. The game's narrative involves Jin travelling to Brisbane, Australia to unlearn the old Mishima style, and I assume that before the storyline was drafted, he was supposed to keep his classic move list from Tekken 3 and Tag 1. Another explanation was that Omen stance was used solely for testing purposes and was never taken out of the files. In my view, Tekken 4 easily has the most captivating cut content so far, but what about the next game? Unfortunately, Tekken 5 doesn't have as much cut content as Tekken 4, at least on the disc itself, so there are no more announcer lines. Sorry, Gonryu. Footage from Tokyo Game Show 2004 exists online, and as this was taken from an early build, the Hell's Gate stage has unique lighting. It's a bit more green than in the final game, with the red sky only becoming apparent when you head left. There are also no angels in the Secret Garden stage upon a knockdown, indicating that this feature was added after TGS. An unfinished version of the title's iconic intro movie exists online, with obvious differences in lighting and character facial capture. It's speculated that this beta trailer was rendered in May 2004, just in time for E3 the following month, and as we don't see many beta fighting game intros, it's really cool to see what this looks like without all the fancy lighting effects. When it comes to what's hidden in the files, a textureless Mokujin variant can be made playable by hacking the game. It takes the place of Paul on the character select screen, and finishing arcade mode will give you his ending sequence. You might think that this is just Mokujin but with less detail, but there are two major differences that this dummy possesses. The first is that his move list isn't random. Instead, it'll always copy the opponent's fighting style, and the second is that its shadow is permanently T-posing. This is no doubt the most effective way to dominate an opponent, so it's quite the clever strategy. Jinpachi Mishima can also be made playable via hacking, with his human and demon forms being present. Both variants function identically, however, so if you are hoping for Demon Jinpachi to be a broken boss fighter, you are out of luck. Fret not, dear viewer, as there exists this unused cutscene of Yoshimitsu teaching Raven how to balance on one leg. This was supposed to play out after defeating Raven in Yoshimitsu's arcade ladder, but the final game has a regular win pose play out instead. I'm not sure why this cutscene was removed though, as it has completed animations, audio, and camera coordinates. If you've ever beaten Time Attack mode, then you'll be familiar with this stage found in the Jinpachi cutscene, but did you know that it exists within the game as a playable arena? Knocking the opponent to the ground summons a flying Jinpachi statue, and if you keep moving towards the sides, you can eventually go out of bounds. Eventually, character models will begin to distort, although the game will catch on at this point and teleport you back to your starting position. Now that I think about it, I'm pretty sure this phenomenon is what inspired Insect back in Tekken 3. I wish there was more to uncover within Tekken 5, but that's all I could discover about the PS2 version, with Dark Resurrection on PSP only having Jinpachi hidden away. At this point, the series was ready to enter the HD era of games for its next installment, so let's jump over to when Tekken went multi-platform. Man, I've got a lot of childhood nostalgia for Tekken 6, which is why it pains me to say that I wasn't able to find much cut content. Aside from the cutting room floor reporting that various leftovers from Tekken 5 are in the console version's files and Jin's lingering soul Omen is in the PSP version, there's very little written coverage of what didn't make its way into Tekken 6. Thankfully, I was able to find an old trailer from 2006 that looks remarkably different to what ended up releasing. The arena that Jin, Lily, and Haorang find themselves in is nowhere to be found in the final game, and their character models look different too. According to Katsuhiro Harada, this trailer was running in real time on PS3 hardware, which was quite the achievement. Outside of the trailer's technical information, its tone is one of maturity, as it focuses almost solely on the internal struggle between Jin and his devil counterpart. After effortlessly destroying the stage, we're greeted with epilogue text that does a great job of setting up the new game's narrative, and it seems that a more serious tone, a la Tekken 4, was to be included. The trailer concludes with a placeholder logo and the old PlayStation 3 font, hinting that the series was set to remain a PlayStation exclusive. Ironically, Tekken 6 was what brought the series over to the Western-developed Xbox 360, and my assumption is that the original plan was to forego said console and focus solely on the PS3. During the following year's AOU show in 2007, an early Tekken 6 trailer featuring a placeholder logo was displayed to the public, and I believe the number on the bottom is a deliberate harkening back to Tekken 3's logo. Just by paying even the slightest bit of attention, you can tell that the level geometry and character models are extremely basic. The Urban Warzone stage takes the cake here, as its grey textures and lighting makes it resemble a test level. None of the featured attacks have their final camera angle placements, but I'm unsure if this was done intentionally for presentation purposes. Shortly after, we can see some free cam action dedicated to flexing the brand new visuals right before being jump scared by Leo's horror movie face. Jokes aside, this style of animation and facial capture reminds me of Virtua Fighter 5. Also from 2007, Japanese location test footage reveals a mostly completed build of the game, although I noticed that rage makes your fighter's hands catch fire. With how Tekken demands players to analyze specific hand movements to break throws, I can imagine this effect was removed to make them more consistent. Looking past the character select screen's terrible image quality, I'm pretty sure that these character icons were in vanilla Tekken 6 but were replaced in Bloodline Rebellion, so I guess they're technically cut content? There was also this character art feature on the loading screen used to indicate that players were experiencing an in-development version of the title, and it's a no-brainer why this was removed. I would love to say that I found more, but this unfortunately just wasn't the case. They've kept Tekken 6's cut content pretty well hidden. After the commercial failure of Tekken Tag Tournament 2, Tekken 7 was Harada's last chance to save the series before the Namco overlords put it out of its misery, and as the first entry to officially release on PC, going through its files should be easier than ever, at least in theory, as the game was delayed to ensure minimal content removal would take place. That doesn't mean there's nothing here though, as shortly after launch, a tsunami's worth of unused music was found in the game's files. You can find them over at the Video Game Music website, although many of these are unnamed. Early song drafts, trailer music, and even licensed tracks are all found here, with some being internally labeled as quote-unquote bizarre. There's even a version of Lonesome City Jazz with a different build-up. Switching over to removed fighters, how many of you remember the Roger Jr. debacle? As an Australian myself, I take pride in our national animal beating up Kazuya, but our furry friend was nowhere to be found within Tekken 7. According to a quote from Harada found in a VG247 article, Roger was removed from the game after the infamous video of the dude punching the kangaroo to rescue his dog went viral. Namco was concerned that animal rights activists would target Tekken 7 and decided to steer clear of any controversy, but with that said, I'm not convinced that Roger Jr. was planned to appear in the first place. I've not seen any evidence online indicating that he was slated to appear in the roster, and as some fan favorites were removed from Tekken 7, it wouldn't surprise me if Roger was never even considered for the game. At this point, I made peace with Roger's permanent departure and found a mod online that restores an unused suit for character customization. The mod's description explains that this cosmetic item is present but goes unused, and I think it looks pretty cool. It would be a grave omission if I ignored Tekken 7's arcade launch, as plenty of its qualities were either altered or removed for the home console ports. If you would like to learn more general information about this version, I have a video covering it in detail, but what's relevant now are the old rage arts. In the console release, they carry a noticeable amount of polish and are visually distinct from regular fighting animations, but the arcade version kind of had it rough. Many of these rage arts are clearly unfinished, with Dragunov's being a bunch of animations stitched together, and Josie's ripped hers out of Soul Calibur 5, it's not even subtle. Stages had dramatically different lighting that played to the strengths of Unreal Engine 4, and I believe that these were changed due to performance concerns. With all the financial pressure placed upon Harada and friends, I'm not surprised that Tekken 7 doesn't have lots of available cut content, as the developers literally couldn't afford to waste their resources. Thankfully, the game ended up being a smash hit, enabling them to go big for the next entry. From its release almost 2 years ago as of recording this video to where we are today, Tekken 8 has seen its fair share of ups and downs, and like with Tekken 2, there really isn't much cut content to be found. I stumbled across some unused subtitle data in various Twitter posts, with these containing pre- and post-battle dialogue strings. They perfectly fit the series' character relationships, and some of them are pretty funny. Keeping up with this trend, many characters have unused laughter voice lines. I haven't played Tekken 8 in a while, but for the life of me, I can't remember hearing any of these recordings in-game. They were first shared on the Tekken subreddit, with users speculating that these were recorded ahead of time for future DLC, which definitely sounds plausible. Aside from some inaccessible character models that appear in the cinematic story mode but are never actually playable, that's sadly all I could find regarding Tekken 8. There just aren't many resources dedicated to archiving its cut or unused content, but I suspect that this is because the game is still fresh. I wouldn't be surprised if more behind-the-scenes information regarding discarded concepts comes out of Namco further down the line, but for now we just have to make do with characters laughing. And that's all of Tekken's cut content, at least that I could find. As the series has been going strong for over 30 years, it's no surprise that each game had unique offerings for us to examine, and I'm still not over the Tekken 4 announcer lines, dude. It would have been so cool to have Anna and Michelle in the game. The moral of the story, if there even is one, is that game development is super hard. Maybe not as hard as Jack's metal-plated skeleton, but it's up there, and virtually all video games have content that the developers are forced to remove. Whether this is due to budgetary concerns, time constraints, technical limitations, or simply a change in plans, leaving unused content inside of a shipped game is as old as the medium itself, and I had a great time learning about what could have seen the light of day. If you made it all the way to the end of the video, thank you so much for watching. I really appreciate you and your time, and I hope you had fun. Please let me know in the comments if there's anything you think I missed out on, as that way we can all learn more. Take care, and I'll see you in the next one.